Hey you guys, before the video starts, I just want to give you a warning that this video is going to go over some pretty heavy topics, including death, self-harm, addiction, and mental health crisis. If this is going to be uncomfortable for you, I would suggest clicking off now. Hi you guys, it's been a while. I have been, I've always wanted to make this video, and I don't know how to make it. I really don't. I have my computer, I have a couple notes, a little bit of structure, but I'm gonna keep this video as authentic as possible because I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. So today I'm gonna talk about my experience and my perspective on growing up with an alcoholic parent, in this case my mom. And I'm gonna kind of just start with a general timeline and my experience, and then I'm going to get into points that I'm sure anyone else who's dealt with this in their life, whether it's, I'm trying to make this from the perspective of a child to parent, but I think anyone that's dealt with any sort of alcoholic in their life can understand where I'm coming from. So basically, my mom passed away from alcoholic cirrhosis, and she passed away January 25th, 2022, so it's actually about to come up on to 2 years now. And I always knew my mom was going to pass away from this. It was something that I didn't want to believe, but I knew by the way she treated it that she was never going to recover from it. And my mom passed away at 40 years old, which is not okay. I don't even know how to get this started. So I guess I should start by, when I was a kid, my parents partied all the time, and my mom drank liquor and beer and things like that. And my parents would fight a lot. My dad really was upset with my mom's drinking a lot of the time. I was really embarrassed to have friends over because both of my parents would just get drunk and emotional, and basically all through my elementary years I knew that they drank a lot. I didn't exactly know there was a problem. Of course, I'm too young to really understand addiction, and I truly never understood addiction until my mom passed away, and I'm going to talk about that. But pretty much when I was a kid, I was extremely embarrassed to bring people around my parents. I knew that what they were doing was not normal, and I thought that they did this stuff on purpose. I thought that they were drinking on purpose. I thought that the fights were on purpose. I didn't understand what was going on. So pretty much my mom was drinking very heavily. She drank really heavy before I was even a thought in her mind, just to throw that out there. She would always justify that it was okay with her family and that it was a social thing, even though I literally told her my whole life that I was not okay with it and I had a problem with it. She would justify it, of course. So eventually my dad stopped drinking, and he really wanted to try and shake my mom of this, and she just didn't. So once my mom grew out of her party phase, it pretty much turned into a nightly ritual of drinking, and she would stop by the liquor store on her way home. And I quickly learned that she turned into a wine drinker. So the liquor and beer turned to wine, and it was a every night thing. She would come home with a bottle of wine and drink it at the house on her way home from work. And then eventually, me and my dad were sick of it. She would just get wasted on the couch. She would be angry and yelling and fighting with my dad for no reason. It would make my dad really upset. They would drag me into it. My mom would pee on herself. My mom would throw up on herself. My mom would fall down the stairs. So it was really, really frustrating, and me and my dad confronted her a lot. And again, this is like, at this point, probably the end of elementary school into my early middle school years. I remember a couple times she would pick me up from horseback riding, and we would go to this Mexican restaurant, and literally the person who owned it would automatically bring a margarita to her table, comped, of course, because we literally went there so much, it became a thing, and it was so frustrating. I remember multiple times me calling my dad, telling him that I was refusing to get in the car with my mom because I didn't want her to drive me home, and it was just ridiculous. Like, she would basically use the excuse of picking me up and we're gonna go get food to get wasted and then go home with no evidence that she had bought alcohol. So this is kind of where the sneaking started, and eventually my mom got into a really bad routine of hiding it because she was sick of me and my dad confronting her about it. So when she would go to the liquor store on her way home from work, she would drink in the car. That way she would just come home drunk and none of us could say, I know you've been drinking. She would just be like, I don't know what you're talking about. She would totally flip the script. Obviously, this is all on purpose. It's not like me and my dad were just crazy and we were like, oh, she's acting weird. She was trying to cover it up. So that didn't last long because we found empty bottles in her car. She started hiding empty bottles in her purse. She would go into the bathroom and drink, and we would find them hidden in the cabinets and the drawers and the trash cans. And then, I mean, she really started to try and cover this up. She would keep mouthwash in her purse so that way she could drink and then there would be no smell of alcohol. We all know you can still smell it off your freaking skin. It doesn't matter if it's on your breath. And this was so emotionally damaging to my dad. Sadly, it was extremely hard for me when I was younger, but I got to a point where I just really pushed my mom away emotionally, and I was like, you know what? I think that you love alcohol more than me, and if that's what you want to do, you want to do that. But and again, I didn't understand addiction at the time, and I think my dad was the same way. He was like, I don't understand if I yell at you nicely, if I yell at you in a mean way, if I cry to you, if I beg and plead, you're still gonna drink. I don't understand. And so that was just emotionally the hardest part for me because I knew my mom wasn't gonna change. Didn't matter what I did. Same thing with my dad. It wasn't gonna change anything, and she was still gonna lie to us and tell us that we were crazy. And so I really protected myself in that sense. I couldn't emotionally depend on my mom at all. And on top of that, my mom was honestly like the man of the household. I had always been a daddy's girl because my dad that's just the way he was. He was very loving and very open with his emotions, and my mom wasn't. She was very strictly business and I'm here to be your mom. And that's great to some extent, but I really pushed her away emotionally because the alcohol was just such a big deal and it really broke my heart. I actually specifically remember one time where my dad was arguing with my mom and he came into my room and he was just like, I don't know what to do. If your mom doesn't stop, she's gonna die. What are we gonna do? And I just instinctually told him exactly how I felt, and I told her, she's never gonna change. She doesn't see a problem with it. She's not gonna change for me. She's not gonna change for you. And I remember my dad being so mad at me, and he was like, I can't believe you'd say something like that. We can't just give up on your mom like that. And I tried to explain to him that I love my mom, but she doesn't care about this at least. And again, it was my misunderstanding of addiction, but same to my dad. I mean, there was nothing we could do to change her mind about this. And my mom went to the grave telling me that addiction was not a disease. When I was, as I grew up, I kept telling her, this is a disease. And she would just say, no, it's not, but I told her, if this isn't a disease, then why can you not get better? Why do you not see a problem with what you're doing? And she could never answer that. I have many very traumatic experiences with my mom being drunk. basically just me being left completely on my own. And even, sometimes my dad would partake. And so I don't really want to sit here and spill out my traumatic experiences. Also, sorry, the lighting's probably changed, the sun's going down. But so yeah, I'm not here to air out dirty laundry, but I do want to go over the timeline of everything. So basically, middle school was just a shit show. My mom was just slowly drinking more and more. My parents were fighting all the time. It made my dad an absolute wreck. And my dad's side is just gonna have to be a whole nother video that I'm gonna make, because my dad actually ended up getting addicted to pills, and then he got addicted to fentanyl, and then he took his life. And yeah, but anyways, that's a whole different video. So at the end of middle school, I saw my mom's appearance change a lot. Like, the alcohol was really, really messing with her. The inflammation of her stomach and her body just was absolutely insane. And I've mentioned this, in like other videos about my mom's appearance changing, and people really took it the wrong way. People thought that I was saying that my mom was fat. That is not the case at all. My mom was significantly losing body weight, but her skin was like super, like everything just was wrong. It was so unhealthy. You could tell. I mean, her legs were like needle thin, but her stomach was sticking out super far. Again, I'm not saying she was fat. I'm trying to describe an unhealthy alcoholic. And I mean, hello, everyone knows what a beer belly is. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. She was just extremely sick looking. She just did not look good. She was always red, so red all the time. Her eyes started getting really big and yellow, and her skin started to sag. And she started vomiting a lot. And I would catch her throwing up like a couple times a week. So when I was in high school, that is when my dad got addicted to pills and fentanyl. And of course, this made my mom spiral. I mean, if she wasn't self-medicating enough, this just completely sent her over the edge. And she was drinking all the time. And she eventually started drinking at work. And this just broke my heart, because it just completely ruined her reputation and the business's reputation. She would pretty much hide at work to get away from my dad. It was very sad. Sorry, you guys. This is just such a hard video to make. I'm at a loss of words, honestly. It's so hard to just relive this shit again. So, of course, me and my dad weren't the only one catching on to this. Once she started drinking at work, the employees started catching on to it. And, of course, the clientele caught on to it. I mean, my mom was a body piercer, for Christ's sakes. You're right up in someone's face. So, it broke my heart, because this was not my mom. This was something that was just coming out of her problems. And it ruined everything. It took her life. It murdered her. I don't know how to put it lightly. So everything got worse. I mean, my mom started going in and out of the hospital, and she was going to a stomach doctor and just trying to avoid everything, She wouldn't give us any of the paperwork from the doctor, and every time we called, of course, they can't disclose information, but we were like, how in the hell is no one trying to treat her for this alcoholism? She just keeps seeing random doctors that are just telling her, you need this, you need to do that. Every time she would come back, she'd be like, I hated that doctor. They were so horrible. They were so uneducated. Like, it was just so frustrating. I don't know if she was just seriously that in denial, or if she was like, I can't sacrifice getting rid of alcohol. I'm assuming it was just she couldn't comprehend the idea of having to stop drinking. So she was in and out of the hospital throughout my years of high school. She lost so much body weight. Like, I kid you not, she was probably like 12% body fat. It was absolutely insane. My mom ended up getting diagnosed anemic. Because, she was literally just skin and bones, and alcohol. She basically completely stopped eating. I mean, she would eat like a strawberry and be like, oh no, I'm good, I'm good. Anything like with acid, she would end up throwing up. My mom started throwing up all the time. Like, I mean, as soon as she woke up in the morning, I would hear her hacking. She would go to the bathroom at work and throw up and drink. She would pull over on the side of the road to throw up. She would be throwing up all night. She was falling up and down the stairs. She was pissing on herself. It was an absolute nightmare. And again, this is while my dad is addicted to fentanyl. So my dad was completely destroying me and my mom on top of all of this. So eventually I was able to move out because I was living with my parents until I turned 18 and I had to save myself. I knew I was going to go down with them if I stayed. So I moved in July and I had seen my parents a couple times in between then, but the last time that my parents came to stay with me was in December of 2021, and my mom was unbelievably sick. My mom was bleeding. Like, I remember she stood up and I told my dad, I was like, she shit on herself. Like, what is going on? And he was like, that's blood. It's a blood stain. And I knew my mom was dying. I knew right then that this was not going to change. My mom was very delusional. She was definitely losing oxygen to her brain. She could barely walk. She was so weak. She couldn't complete her sentences. She was very confused. It was like my mom aged like that. Like, it was absolutely insane. And my mom's 40th birthday was December 7th. And so, you know, she was freshly 40. And then the new year came. So my mom's in the hospital and she texts me, Dad's going crazy. He's acting like I'm dying. And 10 days later, my mom died. And I think that is one of the hardest things to accept, is that my mom didn't know she was dying. I don't know how she didn't know she was dying. I don't know if she didn't want to accept it. But she literally texted me, Dad's acting like I'm gonna die. And then, you know, we can't get a hold of her a couple days later and she's dead. So my mom was in the hospital for 10 days. The second she was hospitalized, she stayed there until she died 10 days later. And she was supposed to get a liver transplant. She was supposed to get a liver transplant, and, you know, by the time they were cleared to do that, she had too much stuff on her to transport anywhere to get it done. It was a mess, you know. My mom just slowly killed herself by drinking. I'm sorry that I went so far into my experience with my mom, but I really wanted to give you guys a clear picture, and I know for a fact there's so many people that can relate to that stuff, the lying, the manipulating, the hiding. I mean, that's one of the points I have on here, is just, you know, it's so hard when it's just like you can see clearly, but the person that you're talking to just does not comprehend it at all. It's just like everything goes straight over their head. And again, whether you're angry, whether you're happy, whether you're crying, whether you're pleading with them, it just doesn't matter. It does not impact them at all. Some of the ways that this has really impacted me is it really strained my relationship that I had with my mom. I genuinely felt like she loved alcohol more than me, and that was when I misunderstood addiction. I understand now that she physically could not control what she was doing. She was essentially hardwired to this routine and the feeling, and it's the feeling. I always say this, it's not the drug, it's not the substance, it's the feeling. My mom was getting this sense of relief. This is how she was coping with everything. This is how she coped her entire life. It's how she had fun. It's how she dealt with her stress. It's how she got through a hard work day. It's how she dealt with my dad, you know, and it's sad. It killed her. That's not the way to do it. It breaks my heart that this, that a drink is the reason that I I didn't necessarily have a strained relationship with my mom. I loved her, but I hated my drunk mom. I loved my mom in the daytime when, before she started really drinking gnarly. But I mean, when I was a kid, it was like at nighttime, I knew my mom wasn't available. But in the morning, I knew my mom was clean and sober and happy and healthy. But then it just turned into my mom always being angry and always being drunk and always being unhealthy. And I was like, dude, where is my mom? And so I got used to the cycle of her not being around. And so I just kept myself safe. I would say the absolute hardest thing that alcoholism has taught me is to grieve someone that's alive. I mean, you literally watch someone die in front of you every time they drink. I mean, seriously. I know people can relate to this. I literally had to grieve my mom while she was alive because I knew she was gonna die. I knew this was gonna happen. I knew since I was a kid. I did not want this to happen, of course, but the way my mom's mentality was on the whole thing, I knew that I could not fix this. And I'm not responsible for it, and neither are you, okay? If you're a child of an addict, you are not responsible for this, and I'm so sorry because you pretty much have zero influence on them. And that's what's sad is, like, I wish I could, like, give advice to children to, help their parents stop or change, but there's absolutely nothing you can do. You literally have to watch someone that's alive slowly kill themselves. I'm not saying that addicts don't recover. I'm not saying that everyone dies from drinking, but if you keep it at this pace and you don't see a problem with it and it turns into such a gnarly addiction, it's bound to take over you. And that's all I have to say. And I don't want to scare anyone either because, again, there are addicts who recover. Recovery is real. Recovery is there. Everyone has a chance to recover, but it's the addict's choice to recover, not the child. What really sickens me is that my mom died at 40 years old and she had an entire lifeline to live and she cut herself short. I don't want to say my mom did this to herself. Her brain did this to herself, but an addiction did this, but my mom had so much life to live, and the fact that a freaking wine bottle is the reason that she's not sitting here with me right now absolutely makes me sick. And I hope that this hits every parent or anyone in general who has an alcohol problem. I hope it hits you right in the face. I hope this hurts. I hope you take this personally because I'm a victim of this. As much as my mom was a victim of this, I'm a victim of this too. I was completely robbed of my mom's life, her well-being, her love, her care, everything for alcohol, to be drunk. What the hell? This is not okay. Every parent out there needs to get their fucking shit together. I seriously hope every parent who sees this and they know they have a drinking problem, I hope to God you take this personally. And it's sad because, I don't want to be angry, but I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted that alcohol is legal and that this is such a common thing. There are so many people with my experience, and sadly, there's way too many people who fall in the same footsteps. I'm sober. My sister is sober. We're probably like the only two people, and she's not even related to my mom. She's related to my dad. We're probably the only two people in our entire family that broke this cycle, and it makes me absolutely sick. Addiction is such a disease. It is such a disease. I don't care what anyone says. My mom had zero control over this. She did not see a problem with it, and now she's dead. So I'm sorry that this was not a light video. I know this was super heavy, and that's exactly why I did not want to make it for the longest, but this is so unfair to so many people. I'm sharing my story in hopes that people with an alcohol addiction will realize what the fuck they're doing, they're not only destroying their lives, they're literally destroying everyone around them. And I know addiction is not personal. I'm fully aware of that. I know my mom loved me with all of her heart. I know she did not love alcohol more than me. But again, she's not here. It didn't matter how many times I pleaded or begged. She's not here with me. And I know this provides zero comfort to any child with an alcoholic parent. I know it only makes things more scary, but that's how real this shit is. I'm so lucky in a sense that I was 18 when my mom passed. If I was underage, I would have had to go into government care. This could have been way worse, you know? Everything could be worse. So, if you're still alive, you have the chance to fix things, fix things. And I hope if you're a child who's stuck in a dangerous environment, I hope that you can get out. I hope that you can get some sort of comfort and protect yourself. And please don't do this to yourself. Please don't fall in anyone's footsteps that has an addiction of any kind. Keep yourself sober, keep yourself safe, and I'm done here. That's all I have to say. Again, I'm really sorry this is such a heavy video, but this has got to stop. You know, I'm not the only one, and I really hope that more people will share their stories. So have a good rest of your day. Please take care of yourself. And if you have a problem, go get help.